So I'm talking now with Katie Miller. She's the corporate communications manager for Sight and Sound theaters in Lancaster and Branson. And I always have to think about it when I say Lancaster because I'm not from that part of the part of the country.
Yes,
I always want to say
that was very well done. Good job.
so it's always like on my mind. I know the way I want to say it is the wrong way. So
Yeah.
I was practicing it before I went on with you. I was like, how am I going to say this? So I know that you're part of the family that helped found and create the Sight and Sound Theater. So first, before we get into questions about y'all's upcoming live production of Esther, of Queen Esther, can you tell me a little bit about your background and how you ended up at Sight and Sound?
Sure. Well, Sight and Sound was around before I was born. We are in our 43rd year, and my grandparents started it kind of by accident, to be honest. They were both farmers, and through a set of tragedies lost the family farm. And kind of my grandfather began relying on his creativity out of tragedy kind of to make ends meet. And so he began painting landscape paintings of Lancaster County. They were peddling them out of the trunk of his car. And through a series of events, eventually did a live slideshow at a local Bible college here, and came out of that saying, what if we would build a theater and have people come to us? They had kind of been on the road doing slideshows for quite some time. And the rest is history. They built their first theater in 1976 with the sole purpose of doing slideshows. That's what it was going to be. And then coming out of that, they started adding other live elements, live animals and actors and actresses and set pieces and all that sort of stuff. And we've grown into, throughout the last 43 years, what we are today. So my childhood growing up, I never knew a world without Sight and Sound. I grew up on the stage with brothers and sisters and cousins and aunts and uncles. And it was definitely much more of a family business then than what it is now. There was about 20 of us, as opposed to our, team of 700 people now. But I've never not been here. So I've done all sorts of things throughout the years, and now have the opportunity to be a part of our brand development team with a focus of communications, but also just general marketing and future development opportunities. So it's a lot of fun. I love every second of it.
Yeah, so Lancaster, the Sight and Sound Theater is really just a part of the culture there. It's a staple of that part of the country. And it's anybody I know who is a believer that's ever been to that area, even people who are not believers have checked out or heard of or been to a show at Sight and Sound Theater there. So can you tell me a little bit? Obviously, y'all have done incredible shows over the years that have been in person, but now a lot of this is changing because of the world we're in right now with the pandemic, and you're having to take the state-of-the-art shows that y'all are known for and adapt them for the internet and for streaming. So can you tell me a little bit about the behind the scenes of how y'all came to set up the Queen Esther show that's going to be premiering live at the beginning of September?
Yeah, of course. It has been, well, put it this way, it's been a whirlwind of a year for everybody. We know that, but our unique story right now, it feels a little bit just, I think we're all having moments of like, wait a second, what are we doing? How did we get here? This happened all really, really fast. And we have been, for the last couple of years, feeling the Lord continue to draw us towards growing Sight and Sound and the ministry that we have beyond our two locations. We are here in Lancaster. We also have a theater in Branson, Missouri, but we know that not everyone can come to those two locations. And even if everybody could, we have limited availability, like theaters, they're big theaters, but we can only house so many people at a time. And so for the last several years, we had already been filming our shows for the purpose of taking them into movie theaters. We had a partnership with Fathom Events, kind of taking them out everywhere. Movie theaters nationwide. We were doing home entertainment releases, DVDs, those types of things. But over the last several, year and a half or so, we've been saying, we think that there's more. What is the next thing that God has for us? Without any kind of live broadcast, none of that was on the horizon. And then when everything happened in March, and we had this brand new show that we were ready to premiere, and we literally got up to opening day. It was the night before opening day that everything closed down, and the night before made the call, we're not actually opening this show, which was a heartbreaking moment, to say the least. And we thought we were going to be closed for 2 weeks and it'd be no big deal, and now here we are, months and months later. And we had had a show, our show Jesus, ready to actually go into movie theaters nationwide on Easter weekend. And so when we realized that movie theaters were also going to be closing throughout the nation, and we weren't sure what we were going to do, we called our friends at TBN and said, hey, we have this show that we feel really passionately about having available to people on Easter weekend. Like there's just
Yeah.
something about this story specifically in where we are in the world. Is there anything we could do together? And they said, yeah, we'll make it happen. And they were awesome. In like a week and a half, like it was just, we pulled all of this stuff off. Most of our teams were furloughed. We were all working out of our living rooms, you know, getting files to TVN. And it blew up, and we had the largest audience we've ever had
Wow.
while being closed during a pandemic. And so we had this moment of going, okay, only God can do that. What are you doing? Like, where are you leading us through all of this? And coming out of that, we kind of had this realization that we really believe that the thing that God is growing for us in this season is just taking us to this next step of what he has called us to, which is expanding beyond our 2 locations. And so when we realized that, hey, even when we can open, which we just recently did a couple of weeks ago to extremely limited crowds, that for the foreseeable future, our crowds are going to be limited. And the hundreds, we were expecting just in Lancaster alone, almost 900,000 people this year. And it's going to be like, I mean, not even percentages of that at this point in time.
Yeah.
The passion for getting this story out to say, what can we do? How can we somehow get the story of Queen Esther live out there in a way that is still us? Like the live experience is really important to us. The audience is a part of the show as much as anything. And so, you know, I still remember, I'll say it over and over and over. We were on a Zoom meeting, all sitting in our living rooms. And one of my coworkers said, what if we did a live broadcast of Queen Esther? And I said, absolutely not. We can't do that yet this year. And now here we are.
And now here you are.
And now here we are, weeks away, moments away from doing this really big thing. But God's faithfulness every step of the way has just been astounding, and we're incredibly grateful for it.
Yeah, I remember I was actually planning to be at the premiere for Queen Esther. I was, you know, sitting in an ice cream shop with some of my friends the night before I was supposed to fly out, and got the calls and emails and texts that everything was changing all of a sudden. So I wasn't able to go, but I remember all of that happening and unfolding. And like you said, here we are so many months later, and so many Zoom meetings and calls, and I'm sure coordination meetings later for you. And how have you seen God move? Like, what's been something that's been obvious that God has just affirmed and confirmed to y'all, this is the direction we need to go?
Yeah, I think for us, that weekend with TVN and Jesus being a worldwide event that was experienced by over 3 million people in one weekend was, I think, kind of blew us away. We were not expecting anything like that. We were like, well, this will be really cool, and whoever watches it. Like, we're hardly doing any marketing. We're kind of just like putting this thing out there. And then it exploded. And there is this moment, we talk about it all the time. We experienced a fire here over 20 years ago and lost everything. That's a part of our history. Some people know, some people don't. But there was a fire, and the entire theater complex, every set piece we had, burnt to the ground. We lost it all. And we ended up 18 months later building and reopening the theater that we are in now. And my grandfather often says, he says it all the time, he said, it was what God used, what started as a tragedy is the thing that God used to take us from that to this. Like, we were here and now we're here. And he did that through something that looked very broken and devastating. And that's really what this year has felt like. It has felt like a broken and devastating year. And yet, you know, we are just experiencing this outpouring of support from guests saying, how can we support you? We can't come right now, but we want to do something. Can we buy a DVD? Can we? And so to be able to pull all of this off, and even the technology behind the scenes with limited team members and limited staff and everything that needs to happen, like, we are not doing it on our own. We know that this whole event is like, Lord, it's yours. Because I don't know if we can do it on our own to get us from there. But I think no matter what the future looks like, we are going to continue to see this be a part of who we are at Sight and Sound. I think offering live experiences for people all around the world at the same time to come and be together as we can be in this season. And in any season, really, I think is something that we're going to continue to see grow beyond just this one event. At least we sure hope so. So we'll see how it all unfolds, but we're super excited about it.
And you mentioned too earlier that the live performance and that aspect is such a central part to Sight and Sound Theater and the experience that y'all create. What has it been like preparing for one that's either going to have no audience or a very limited audience in the auditorium when you do a live performance? performance, because that's an odd thing to adapt to do this live performance without having the charismatic energy of a big audience in the
Right.
auditorium. So what has that kind of been like, gearing the cast and crew up for something like that?
Yeah. Thankfully, like, we do have the gift of space, so we are going to be able to have a limited crowd. And we tease our audience before every show that we're running right now, like, hey, there's a lot of empty seats around you, so you got to make enough noise to make up for them, like help our cast and crew out a little bit. And so I think for that, it has been a gift that we have space here. We can physically distance really well and still have an audience in play. I think the thing our teams are most nervous about is that with any kind of live theater, especially when you have as many moving set pieces and live animals, like, what do we do if something doesn't work? What do we do? And that's part of it. I'm like, guys, that's live theater. That's what we get to do. And we get to share this experience, and something might go wrong. Like, let's plan to say something probably will go wrong, and that's okay, because that is part of the live. It would be a lot easier. That's why I said what I said on that Zoom meeting a couple of months ago. Like, we are not ready for that. Like, a live broadcast of a live show, like, it's very different than, a perfectly edited DVD months later, where you can edit out every little time, like, the goat doesn't go where it's supposed to or whatever, but we can't do that when it's live. And so we're hoping that our audience from wherever they are in the world truly feels like they have a front row seat inside the theater. Like, if we can accomplish that through this live broadcast, and they feel the community of being together without actually being together, I think that's one of the best gifts that we can offer the world right now. Because as much as this year has been incredibly challenging for so many of us, it's been so lonely as well. Like, church online is not the same as church in person. Zoom meetings are not the same as having coffee with a friend across the table. It's just not. And so our hope is to be able to create a sense of community with the in-house audience and the audience that's watching from wherever they're watching from.
Yeah. And I think it's so cool that y'all are offering this on your platform live, because it creates such an intimacy. And, whether you're watching it on your iPad or on your laptop or on your TV in your living room with family and friends, to be able to know that it's happening in real time live is really cool. It's similar to, like, when you watch a church service in the morning. Obviously, it's not the same as being there in person. But if I'm watching a Sunday morning service that's pre-recorded, it just doesn't feel the same as if I'm watching the pastor preach live. And I think the same is true for a theatrical performance. If I'm watching it live, there's a lot more intimacy there, and it seems like you're more involved than just watching something pre-recorded.
No, it's true. And a lot of times, if we are watching church on a Sunday morning and we know our friends are too, like, are you guys watching? We're sending selfies, like, we're all, you do what you can to have people feel connected, especially our kids, to have our kids feel connected with their church friends and things, even when they're not in there. We're all sitting in our PJs on a Sunday morning, eating breakfast, watching, like, we're still trying to be as together as we can be. And so our hope is that the same thing happens. And we want to hear stories from everywhere. We want to hear what people did to create the sense of community while watching and being a part of this thing. So
my last question for you, just for anybody who is interested in buying tickets, wants to know more about the platform, where can they go, and what's the cost associated with all that?
Yeah. So if you want to get more information around Sight and Sound TV and the Queen Esther live event, you can go to sight-sound.tv, and everything is there. It is a free subscription to the platform. And then there are different price points for pay-per-views and downloads and purchases and rentals and all sorts of things like that within it. So we hope to see you there. We hope to see everybody to come alongside us for this really exciting event on Labor Day weekend this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. I'm looking forward to seeing Queen Esther and seeing more coming down the way in the future. And hopefully I will end up getting back to Sight and Sound in Lancaster sometime in the near future.
We'll have you back sometime. Absolutely.
Thank you so
hopefully
much.
Not during a pandemic next time.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thanks.